Hey guys, welcome to Meet Cute Society. This is our first episode, and we are super excited because we have a huge announcement, something that's been in the works for 2 years.
Oh, well, I mean, if you want to get technical, 2008.
2000, really?
Yeah.
No, really?
Yeah, definitely.
That's so crazy because spoiler, I know a little bit about this idea, but where society is today, they need it so much more than we did in 2008, you know?
Absolutely. I think if if this would have been birthed in 2008, it probably would have died.
Yeah.
So I think now is the time.
Yeah, so I guess let's just get right into it. What is the idea? And I'm going to try to do interview format just so this can be as informative as possible, although we can't give away all the details because it's a multi-billion dollar idea, quite frankly. And I do believe that it's going to change the world. And that is really special to be a part of. So yeah, what's the idea? Share as much as you want.
Okay, sure. So my name's Robin.
I'm Kyle.
This is Kyle, and mother son.
Yeah, we skipped all that.
A major big part of who we are.
The people were like, they look very, very similar for business partners.
So Meet Cute Society is an app that we have created to have connections in real life. So there's a lot of apps out there, there's a lot of social media out there, and people are just behind their phone all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have that in real life connection, the one-on-one camaraderie.
Right.
We don't have that person that we can call and say, you know what, I've had a really bad day today. Can you meet me and have a cup of coffee?
Yeah. And I know a lot of people feel this way because part of doing this was learning. It's one thing to know that people are lonely. It's another thing when that feeling is backed up by analytics and data. And I think what we found was, well, it was disheartening, but not for us because we're here for the solution. But it was alarming to see how many people are lonely. I think yesterday I saw UCLA did a study and it was, I think 88% of Gen Z is lonely, which is actually going up from the millennials and even up from before. And there's all kinds of analytics that just really show you that even though this technology that exists that is supposed to be bringing us together, you would think that would bring a sense of community, a sense of, I guess, the opposite of loneliness. But I guess there's a disconnect somewhere because it's not.
Well, what happens is we get on our phone and we get that 3-second dopamine hit.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're on to the next one and on to the next one. And next thing you know, you've been on your phone for 2 hours. But who are you really connecting with?
Right.
You're just watching strangers' videos. And then there's also the opposite side of that. If you're the one creating the videos, oftentimes you're seeking community.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens? Trolls come into your comments and they're saying all kinds of mean and nasty things. And oftentimes those people you're just regular schmegular people. They're not like celebrities or anything. And now they don't know how to handle that. They don't know how to say, oh, your nose is so big, or, why don't you lose some weight, or you're ugly and stuff like that. And so now that person that was like, hey, let me put myself out there and make this video, this fun dancing video. Now they're like, oh, forget it, because now I just got all kinds of hate.
Yeah. And, it depending on the user, I mean, I'll use Facebook for an example, or I'll call it FB, for example, just in case.
Right.
You can kind of make your friends list, let's say, mostly family. But I think the longer you have that account open, the more you're like, where do I even know this person from? How are we friends? So like you said, I'm going through and I'm seeing strangers' stories. Like, these aren't even people that you necessarily know. And even if you do keep it tight and it's family, you don't really want to share your dirty laundry, because I know there was a stigma. And this is personally, I always thought growing up in middle school and stuff like that, there would be people that would share how they feel on the internet. And I always thought, oh, why would you share your, why air out your dirty laundry for the world to see? And then when I think it was only a couple years ago, I had an epiphany that if somebody is doing that for attention, which was always what I thought it was for, then that means that they need it.
Right.
Right. And that's, so you kind of move from a place of judgment to a place of understanding,
And
but
empathy.
and empathy, but it's still not the results, right?
There's no solution.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I think having a real community of people that you can say, hey, I'm going through this, or not even going through something, it might be a transition. And we'll talk a little bit more. I recently experienced what it's like to go through major life transitions, and you have people, sure, that you can reach out to and talk to. But sometimes you need those people in your life that you're not going to reach out to when you need to, and they call you. Right. Because when people are depressed, I think they're less likely to pick up their phone and call people. Like, so,
but that's the thing, in the 50s, women typically stayed home, men went to work, and after the men went to work and the kids went to school, what did the women do? They went to each other's houses and they played card games and they shared recipes. And, we used to call it coffee clutch, where you just talk and drink over coffee,
yeah.
And there was camaraderie, there was connection, constant. And if one person didn't show up to that, they're going to that house and they're knocking on the door and be like, what are you doing?
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that everything was perfect in the 50s. By all means, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that there was community.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have community, when someone's checked out, people notice. And when you're alone and you check out, who's noticing?
Oh, that's a great point. And I know I just moved from Whidbey Island in Washington State. Very beautiful place if you've never been. And
Agreed.
I used to, yeah, we absolutely love it. And there was a person that I would watch their dog, and she was probably in her late 60s, and she did that. Every time I would go over there, it would be like 1 o'clock, and they'd be, drinking white wine and baking, and they all were sitting around a table just talking, right? And I think back then, at least in the 50s, we didn't have as many distractions.
Right.
So if you're sitting around and you're bored, but you don't have entertainment, naturally you're going to want to find that, because we are, even introverted people have a desire to connect with people. Even if you say that's not me, I guarantee you, if you were in solitary confinement for 7 days, you would do anything to just see somebody, let alone talk to them.
Do you want to know a fun fact?
Yeah.
So, through my research and heavy, nose deep research in psychology and personalities and all of that, the introvert is actually just made up. There's actually not an actual psychology term of introvert. It's something that they've created for themselves to lean into, to say, oh, I'm an introvert. I'm putting this label on me because I don't want people to come close to me. And more people are introverted because we don't have that community anymore. And we've just become accustomed to that.
Yeah. And then you normalize it.
Right.
It's a word that everybody knows. It's like, no, I'm not going to go out with you guys. I'm more of an introvert.
And we live in this cancel culture, meaning I'm going to cancel plans. You see memes all the time. It's Monday. I've already canceled my plans for Friday. And it's kind of normalized,
Mhm.
especially since, our uh, staycation, if you will,
Yeah.
our nationwide staycation. And now people are like, oh, yeah, it's cool. I'm just going to lay in bed and I'm going to watch TV or movies and stream Netflix for 20 hours.
Mhm.
But that's become just such a normal part. And we really have to break out of that cancel culture plan. And I don't say this, but in some of the research, people are saying, oh, we've just become lazy and we just want to be home. But I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to be home. I love being home. I love
Yeah.
my home, right? But we also have to make sure that we're creating space in our life for other people.
Yeah. And with the pandemic, I mean, look at how we reacted when doors opened. I mean, whether it was a concert or a stand-up comedian or a football game, we were ecstatic to be back with each other,
Right,
right? And a lot of people would say that we're so divided, but look how much we were so excited to not talk about any of the things that divide us and
right,
just be with each other. So it does show that is inside of us. And I agree, like, you may not say that it's lazy, but that's just being, trying to, I think that's just being polite a little bit. But what it is like, I don't want to do anything outside of my comfort zone.
right,
And that is, I guess that could be categorized as lazy, but it's not necessarily lazy. It's just people are finding it harder and harder to get out. And I really do think it's because why not just lay in bed and scroll on TikTok or YouTube and not have to deal with whatever it is. If it's maybe you have some kind of what do you call it? Like when you're scared to speak in public, social anxiety.
hmm,
Maybe you have some social and whatever those things are. Now you have an actual like escape from them, right? There's things that you can do so you don't have to be in these uncomfortable situations. But whether it's going to the gym or it's a cold plunge, uncomfortability is a necessity.
right.
We have to be
We
uncomfortable.
grow in the
Yes.
uncomfortability. We don't grow when we're comfortable, and that's what's super important.
Yeah.
And it's a vicious cycle, right? Like we go to work, we're working 40, 50 hours a week, longer hours than of any generation past. We're working longer hours, we're driving home in so much traffic. Now we're exhausted. Now the kids want us, partners want us. And so we just give and give and give and give and give. And then, somebody said to me, I give so much of my time. I don't have any time for me. I don't have, I can't even think of having another relationship. I can't think of, bringing somebody in because I just don't have that mental capacity. I don't have that space. But here's the thing, like, if you had that community, then all of those other things would be a lot easier to handle. And
Yeah.
you would have an escape from it. And don't you, I mean, how many times do you say to your friend, oh, we should do this again? Oh, it was such a great time. We should do this again. But then you don't. 6, 9, 10 months go by and you still don't see them.
Yeah, and I've even seen those memes where it's like to all my friends that I can see once and never again for 3 years, and we pick up right. And there's that happens when you live in different states and
Right.
stuff like that. But I think this is something different, and another big reason that I think this is going on, at least for me personally, is because you don't want to go to the environments that exist for community. So if it's a Friday night, it's usually a bar,
Right.
right? And I know for me, I don't enjoy drinking. It's not part of my life anymore.
Right.
But I still go to a bar but it's because I'm trying to get community. It's
Right.
because I'm trying to run into people. I need variety in my life. And by the way, we all need uncertainty, we all need certainty, and we need that balance between variety and stability. And when you don't have variety, you get bored. And when you're bored, you're lonely. When you're lonely, you're depressed. And when you're depressed, you go back on the app, and it's a vicious cycle. So there really needs to be more outlets. And I know there's certain places in the country where you could go hiking, yeah, you could do things outdoors, but there's also certain places in the country where that's not really an option, where we can go hike in, the middle of a country field where there's nothing, like no
Right.
mountains. So depending on where you live, you may have different challenges, but I would say one of the main reasons for me is that the options for finding those communities are limited.
That brings us to Meet Cute Society, which is the app that we have created for meaningful and lasting connections. And how it works is you're going to create an account with us, log on, and we have created a personality test. And this has been carefully curated for the past 2 years with psychologists, relationship experts, and just normal everyday people. Once you finish your personality quiz, you're assigned a color. And so, for an example, I'm a red, and reds do really well with oranges and yellows. And now here's where it gets fun. This is not just an app. So forget the days of, swiping, no swiping here.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're going to take your information, and now we're going to have events. So now we're going to have meetups, coffee shops, bookstores, golf courses. And we're going to say, all right, if you're a red and a yellow, go here. If you're a green and an orange, go here. And then all colors come here. So it's really meant for us to meet each other online, but then get out from behind the app and go meet each other in real life.
Yeah, and I know for me, I love rom-coms. I'm a big rom-com guy. And I don't know who I told this to, but I remember getting a hilarious reaction from it. But if you notice in rom-coms, but like Fever Pitch, right? Fever Pitch, the girls are all at spin class together. And then the guys are talking about football and smoking cigars. And they're,
That's Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore.
yeah, yeah. And then there's, I mean, I could go down an entire list, but the one with Matthew McConaughey where his parents are trying to get him out of the house, Failure to Launch.
Failure to Launch, yeah.
And I would watch these movies and be like, who are these people? Like, is this real life and I'm just missing out? Like, where's that friend group that they're always hanging out with in these rom-coms? Like, the music in the background, it's just like everyone's having a good time and happy, and there's the community. It's like, I think for a lot of people, if they want that, the closest thing they could do is go hang out with their family. And I think it's important to have friends outside of your family,
Right.
people to do life with. And the reason I think people laughed when I said that is because it was very relatable. Like, you're right. Movies always kind of portray that. And I know that when I lived in Miami, I was a part of groups that did exist. But, since then I moved, and it was almost like a once in a lifetime chance to be in those groups. And, life happens and people move on. And I think a lot of people really do want to have friends that they can hang out with and have common interests with and be at the same frequency of life. Okay. We're all, going through the same type of season, whether it's change or trying to grow in personal relationships or wanting to be outdoor.
How many times have you wanted to go to a concert? Oh, so and so is coming in. But you don't want to go by yourself.
Yeah.
And so then you don't have anybody else to go with, and now you skip out. I can't tell you how many times I've pulled my daughter into a concert and she just like tolerates it. I mean, she's a good sport, but like she didn't know any New Edition songs.
Yeah.
It would have been so fun.
You needed a jam buddy.
I did.
You needed a jam buddy. And I wasn't planning on telling this story, but I think it's very relevant. So I always wanted, I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan, and I always wanted to go to a game. And I finally saved up all my money. I bought a plane ticket. I flew to Denver by myself, stayed at a hotel, went to the game, and guess what? I finally walked into Mile High, a place that I've only seen on TV. This was a moment that was supposed to be something I fantasized about for a decade. And what I left with, well, I had a good time, but this is what I left with. The best things in life aren't worth experiencing alone.
Yeah.
I was supposedly around 84,000 people, but I had nobody in there that knew what it meant to me.
Right.
And that's pretty heavy,
It
because
is.
there's a lot of people that are doing all the right things, like that's ambitious. I'm going to fly across the country by myself without anybody, but at the end there's something that's missing when you can't share those experiences with people.
And sometimes, like that same concert, I remember right in front of me, there was a guy and a girl, and clearly they were married and maybe probably for a very long time. He had no interest in being there. And she was standing up the whole time dancing, and he was like,
What concert? I have to ask. What?
New Edition.
Oh, New Edition.
Yeah.
I was thinking like TLC or something.
No. And so he just had no interest in being there. And I was just thinking, is it worse going alone or going with somebody who's just miserable the entire time?
You know what? This is how bad loneliness is. It's better to go with someone miserable.
Miserable.
I would rather, because my ex-wife did not, we didn't share a lot of the same interests. And she went to a game with me, and it was a regular game, and we got blown out, and I had more fun than the time I went alone and we won a playoff game.
Wow.
Right? And we lost, and that
Right.
just shows you, like, wow, just having somebody that knows that this means a lot to me. It's like it's like if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around, does it make a sound? Like, if you experience something incredible but have no one to share it with, did it even happen?
Right.
And that's a little extreme. Like, of course it happened, and you can still, I think there's a lot of growth in doing things alone. I'm not anti personal alone time, but when that's all you have,
Right.
that's when it becomes, I think, an issue.
Well, let's see. This is my 4th year in Nashville, and I have 2 friends. And
Half a friend per year.
right. Because how do you meet a friend? As an adult, how do you meet a friend?
Yeah. How do you meet a real friend? Outside of, I think, the bar and church, ironically, they don't seem like two the same. But if you take church and bar out, because first off, bar is, well, you could go every day, but there'd probably be a different issue. And then church is just on Sunday. And the whole point is not to be reliant on that. It's supposed to be like the cherry on top of your life. But like you said yesterday, there's a lot of people that, since there's this lack of community, sometimes they even go to church just for that.
Right.
And that's sad that we don't have more options. And I'm sure we're leaving a lot out that people will be listening, like, well, I went to this thing, or there's other things you can do. But the point is, it's not easy. It is not easy to find friends.
There's festivals and all that stuff, but I've been to so many festivals here in town, and you strike up a conversation with somebody, or maybe you're on the lawn listening to somebody sing, and you're jiving with them. I don't know if that's the word.
No, that's the word.
But,
jiving.
But then the concert's over, and you're like, oh, it's nice meeting you. You too. Bye.
Yeah, and
because
if you,
then there's that. I'm sorry, but that's awkward too. But like, can I have your number?
That's what I was just about to say. I went out for the first time in the last month, 2 days ago. I had a great time. I met a country singer. We're in Nashville, of course. They're everywhere. But she was so kind. She was so nice. I met a beautiful girl from Brooklyn. I met a guy that was one of the best listeners. And I may never see them again. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Unless, especially, and this is more about the relationship side, but especially as a, somebody that, you got the male female thing going on. It's like, can I have your number? What, are we going to go on a date or something? Are you asking me on a date? I want to be your friend.
Right.
And you can say that, but nobody can deny that it's just a little weird. It
Right.
is a little weird to be like, I don't have any friends and I would like you to be my friend. And then you
Right.
don't have to say it that weird, but but just
Yeah,
to
I think
kind of
if someone said that to me, I'd be like, weirdo, right?
yeah, there might be a reason you don't have any friends, and there is, and we're gonna address that. So this app is about finding meaningful connections with people. Now, that could be you are trying to find your future forever partner, or it could just be that you're looking for a friend group, people to share life with, and this app is supposed to make that a lot better. And the other apps, and we won't mention their names, but you know what they are. They involve swiping. And first off, on its face, when you look at a profile and decide yes or no that that person is good for you based on a picture, that is already like it's rigged. The recipe is terrible to begin with, and it creates a superficial relationship, and it just becomes about one thing. And in a lot of cases, you got a large majority of people competing for one person or vice versa, and a lot of people are left not getting anything. Maybe you get a match, and then what? What's next? I mean, hey, we matched.
Right. And then you sit there and like, you make the first move. No, you make the first move. Well, I'm not making the first move. You need to make the first move.
Yeah, I don't want to look desperate. Like, there's no way to not be in your head. And I think back in well, I won't even go 50, just before this technology really existed, there was just a natural way of running into people, right? You
Right.
run into somebody, I like you, you like me, do you want to go on a date? But it seems like those opportunities, although they still exist, it's not received the same way since technology has come, because most people are spending so much time being like, no, that guy's weird, I don't want this picture. No, no. By the time you run into them at Starbucks, they just want to be left alone. They need a
Right.
break.
Right.
And that used to be where we would meet. So yeah, let's get into not only the app being for connections, but how is it going to be different than those other apps that we didn't name?
Sure. Okay, so when you have a startup, a tech startup, especially one of this magnitude, it costs millions of dollars to build. So you have to go out for funding, you have to go in front of a bunch of venture capitalists or angel investors, and you have to sell your product to them. And I remember having a conversation with this guy, and he had all the statistics pulled up, and he said, friendship apps fail. Statistically, they fail. And I said, yes, I know why. And he said, well, why do they? And I said, because you swipe on a friend.
Mm-hmm.
I could justify swiping on a boyfriend, a partner, whatever. I cannot justify swiping on a friend. I don't want you to be my friend based on what you look like, you know, what you're not the right height, you're not the right weight.
Yeah,
It doesn't make
never thought about that because I've been on the other apps, but I haven't really been on a friendship app, and I don't see why the way somebody looks would be an important factor on what kind of friend you're going to have.
right,
It's not high school.
right. And it's not a factor. And that's why friendship apps have failed in the past. Great idea, great concept, failed execution.
Yes, and another thing as well. I know in Whidbey Island they have Whidbey Island community pages and stuff. Um, I know the neighborhood we live in has a neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
but you find that in those, it's not really as much about finding friends, but it's more about this is information the community needs to be aware of. there's a wolf running around the neighborhood, or and it could easily slip into gossip. I know in Whidbey Island, it was not an environment where you would make friends, but it was something you would have on your phone, but it's more so you could be informed.
Right.
So,
And those are
I just bring
important.
that up because these
Right.
are other places that people are probably thinking, okay, well, what about this? What about this? But there's nothing like this.
Right.
So yeah, so you knew that friendship apps fail, and you
Right.
told him that,
Right.
and you said, I know why, and then you told him. Did you tell him more than just the picture part?
Right. Well, so I said there's all these different apps that do all these different things. So, like the Meetup app is really great and it has great events and stuff like that. And then there's this app that does that. And then there's a couple apps that have started now saying, like, oh, we're going to have a meetup here. But once again, you're like, who's going there? Am I going to have anything in common with them? And what about the age range? Now, that is might sound silly, but I'm 48 years old. You know, I don't see myself wanting to be around 22-year-olds. My
Oh
daughter,
yeah,
my
yeah.
daughter's 22 years
I don't
old.
see myself wanting to be around 22-year-olds.
Right. And the 22-year-olds probably don't want to be around a 48-year-old.
Yeah.
It goes both ways.
Yeah, exactly.
And can we be collectively together at some, meetup or event? Yes, but that's not what that was for.
You're not gonna call a 22-year-old at 48 years old to talk about your relationship struggles and stuff.
And also this was a dating app, so even more so.
Yeah.
I do not want to date a 22-year-old.
Yeah. No, I couldn't. I don't want to date a 22-year-old because, like you said, I have a sister that's 20. So every 22-year-old out there, I'm sorry, I can't date you because I see as my sister. It's almost like every 22-year-old is named Alyssa. That's another one. When they have the same name, you're like,
right.
Can't do it.
Yeah, right.
Did you ever feel that way with, like, if you were, like, let's say you were going to get a new boyfriend, but they had the same name as
Tyler? That's happened to me.
What about like somebody you dated? Is that off limits too?
Well, so I had a friend of mine back when I lived in Boca, and he was like trying to set me up on a date. And he's like, oh my gosh, I know this guy and he's perfect and he's an entrepreneur and he loves this and this and he's perfect for you. And I was like, okay, I love when somebody's like, he's perfect for you.
Yeah, yeah.
His name is Tyler. No, absolutely not. So Tyler is my oldest. It's Kyle's brother. No.
Yeah, no, I know. I knew that. I knew where that was going. It's like, he's perfect for you. Yeah, his name's Tyler.
No,
no, that's not happening.
Absolutely not. No. Can we call you by your middle name?
He's like, no problem, James.
Oh, God.
This is my brother's middle name. But yeah, so, okay. So you're going through this process. And at this point, was this the first person that you reached out to for funding?
Oh, no.
So this was just one of the many people that, like every great company, was told it won't work.
Right.
Or what makes that app any different than all of the others? Which I think is a really important part. And it's a valid question because there are so many options. Unfortunately, none of them are solving the overlaying issue. And we talked about the personality test. So you're going to have a very, very thorough personality test. And this personality test was not done lightly. It's trial and error. It has been, I guess, foolproofed at this point. So you're going to be matching, and you may match, depending on what you're looking for, different results, right?
Right.
Because you don't necessarily need to be on the same page with certain things with a friend that you may want to be with a relationship.
Correct.
So this app goes into that. And like you said, you get a color and you find out which colors you match well with. But there's way more than that, right?
So think about if you're new in town and you don't know anybody. Now you can sign up and you can come to an event and it's not awkward, right?
Hmm.
You're not just going to a coffee shop, waiting and lurking, and okay, that person might seem approachable, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're going there for a purpose. We're all coming together because we all want connection. And whatever that connection is, it could be love, it could be friendship, it could be friendship that turns into love.
Hmm.
You know, there's not really a limitation to it, but it takes the awkwardness out of it
Yeah.
when you know that we're all here for the
Yes.
same purpose.
Yes. Yeah, that's so true. Because even if you're, let's say there's a group and it's like, if you need a friend, we're going to have a meetup. It's a little like, okay, like this is a little strange, and it just shows you like people are willing to put themselves in those awkward, uncomfortable situations because of how desperate they are for
Hmm.
friends. But there's also people that are desperate for friends that won't do that.
Right,
They would rather be lonely
right.
than be in that awkward situation. And a good friends of mine in Washington, especially, so I was in the Navy for the last 6 years. I'm medically retired now, but being in the military, you get to learn a lot about this. Being in the military is the highest suicide rate of any profession in any country, the United States military. And it's not just the men that are leaving for 12 months. Well, it's men and women, of course. But why I say that is because the wives that are left back at home are lonely too.
Right.
It's not just the men and women overseas. If anything, the men and women overseas are less lonely than the ones that are stuck back at home.
Absolutely.
And I had very good friends of mine, and I was really good friends with their wives, and there was a couple of them that wouldn't do that. They would not go to any place to get into this uncomfortable situation because it's just not in their personality. So yeah, this whole like remove the awkwardness aspect is big because everybody is going to open this app, and then there's going to be an introduction where they're going to learn what this is. And by coming into it, you're coming into a community,
Yes.
and a community that is real, not
Right.
a community that is like you got a bunch of digital people and maybe
No
you'll
bots.
no bots. And this is the best part of the app, in my opinion. So I'm going to let you say it, but it's what happens next IRL, right? These meetups, going to a place and seeing their faces. And not only are you seeing their faces, depending on what you're looking for, but let's just say friends, right? You already know that because of these color profiles that you match with these certain people. So I can look at you, right? And it's maybe my first time ever seeing you, but oh, you're a blue.
Right.
I'm a purple.
Right. So our bracelets are coming. They're not here yet.
But
People are,
that'll be the idea, you know?
but we in the meantime we have stickers that you'll put on your coffee cup
Mm-hmm.
or your drink or whatever, and your shirt, whatever. And so you're gonna walk around with your orange or your red or your purple, whatever, and then you already know I probably will have something in common with them. So if you're at an event and you're open to be in a relationship, you will give you a heart.
Hmm.
So think about that. You know, how often have you like gone to an event? I know it's happened for me.
Yeah.
You know, I've gone to an event and I see a gentleman and I watch him play with his dog and I'm like, oh my gosh, he loves dogs. So do I. We're both here. We're jamming out to this great music. You know, we're doing yoga, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden you take a closer look and he's got a ring. But what if he doesn't have a ring? You know,
Yeah.
for sure, last year I went to this event and it was the doodle for me. And he had a doodle, I had a doodle, and we had the best conversation. And I was like, okay, I like this conversation. I like where it's going. Um, you know, you're just into the conversation. In the back of your mind, you're like, well, maybe I could ask him for his number. But then in walks a girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so, not that we didn't have great conversation and not that it was fake on either
Yeah.
side, it was genuine. But if you're at an event, to meet people for a connection, you definitely don't want to walk up to somebody that is in a relationship and, try to
Right.
start up something.
Yeah. And I think that's for guys, they look for the wedding ring too. It's the wedding ring.
Yeah.
And um, besides what Adam Sandler and Just Go With It, when he wears the wedding ring to pick up chicks,
Yeah.
most people don't do that.
Right.
So yeah, I think it just removes, because it's not just that they're looking for someone or not, depending on whether they have the heart or not. It's where you go in your head when you're having this conversation, right? Because you're having a conversation, and if you're open to being in a relationship, even if you weren't looking for one necessarily, but you're just open to whatever happens, then when you run into somebody and you're hitting it off, what if, right? And then in comes a girl, and you're older and more mature, so you're like, oh, okay, of course, he was a good person, so not shocked. But for some people, it might be really discouraging,
Right.
like, oh man, I really felt like there was something special, like that movie moment. I thought I was having
meet cute.
The meet cute moment.
Yes.
And now with the heart, I think it just makes everything so much easier. So you go in and
it sets your intention.
Yes, I was thinking the word intentional that whole time, because you go in there and there's a heart. And just imagine getting off of these apps, especially if you're out there. And we did friendship examples. Let's do a love one. You're out there, you're looking for love, you're on these apps, you're not really getting anywhere. Imagine being able to walk into a place and have a bracelet on and have a coffee cup with a heart. And all of the people that are in this room with you that have a heart are intentionally looking for love. So no awkwardness, no weirdness. So we go to the gym every day, and we just had this conversation in the parking lot where we have the best conversations
in the parking lot of the gym.
we even talked about recording the podcast in there jokingly.
Yeah.
So and I think we came up with 3 or 4 examples, and they were real life for me. So you're at the gym and you see somebody, and they notice you notice them, you're attracted to them. It seems like they're attracted to you, but you also respect them. And sometimes when you respect somebody, you just don't want to be a burden. So you're like, well, maybe I'm full of myself and she's just looking around the gym and made eye contact with me.
Right.
Maybe it's not what I think it is. And in her head, she might be thinking the exact same thing. Maybe he just,
it happened to me yesterday.
Really?
Yes, when I was looking for you, I had made eye contact with this guy. Like you said, we go every day, pretty much the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I made eye contact with him the day before, and we both, smiled at each other. And it's like, are you smiling because you're being friendly? Because we're in Tennessee,
Yeah,
in Southern hospitality. Or are you smiling because you think I'm cute?
Right.
Which is it?
And
either is fine. I just would like to know.
Exactly. Either is fine, but please, I just want to know. And imagine just being in a gym going, that's it. Do you love me? Am I crazy? Imagine she's like, no, I thought I was crazy. No, I don't. That's a meet cute moment. But yeah, like it removes all of these barriers that exactly what somebody is, what they're looking for. So if they look at you and smile, and you look at them and smile, and you're at a meet cute event and you're looking for love, it means what you think it means.
Right.
It means what you think it means.
Exactly. And then I had a girlfriend, she said to me, well, I would love to go on your app, but I just got a divorce. So although my door is like cracked open, it's not like all the way open. And I said, the best relationships start out as friendships.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, if you're kind of, your door is cracked open a little bit, don't put the heart on.
Yeah.
Just, go out there and try to meet a friend. I said hard on. I was gonna blow over it.
I was going to as well. Don't come in with a hard on. If you're not looking for love.
Okay.
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 We're not cutting that. Okay. Don't put the hard on. If you're not committed, or if you're not ready to commit, that doesn't mean you don't need friends.
Right. And just, choose not at that moment in your life to have a heart. I can't unsay it.
Me neither. I said it, and then I was like, "Oh, I hope I didn't give her the pass to say it because I'll lose it." Oh.
I gotta come up with a different
Okay.
way to say it.
You don't just say you don't need.
You don't need the heart. You don't need a heart.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I think it should say hard on. don't have a hard on if you're not ready to get in a relationship. Okay, yeah. You don't need to, I guess there's no rush in committing. Like you said, the best relationships start as friendships. My best relationship that I've ever had was with somebody that I was best friends with.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that wasn't my first couple relationships or my first 5. Well, I had a couple in there that were really, really good friends, and they ended great. And I noticed usually when you're best friends in a relationship and it does end, it's not toxic, right? Because you were friends before that.
Right.
And yeah, once you have that, you experience what it's like to be in a relationship with somebody that just absolutely just does it for you. Like they are your best friend. You would never go back
Right.
to anything less. So I think that is really, it's a really cool part that you're going to be able to bring people together. And really, I just love how everything about this is intentional, because all the apps that exist right now, you can just lay in bed and, what's that? A notification from that app? Let me click on it. Suggested
Instant
match.
gratification.
Instant gratification. But even sometimes you're not even gratified.
Right.
You're
but
just
that's
like,
what we're seeking, right? So, I've interviewed plenty of men, women, and having them say, I literally swipe right on everybody, waiting to see if somebody responds,
mm-hmm.
and then strike up conversation. And that is not the point.
Yeah.
And so, we're all, this whole society is in like this microwave mode. We want it right now. We want to do it right now. We want to have the best relationship right now, get married, have kids, blah, 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 right now. But what if, hear me out, what if you took your time and you created something and you cultivated something real? And yeah, maybe it took an extra 6 months, 8 months, a year, but now you have a whole relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
That you specifically curated with intention.
Yeah. And I think most people are at a point right now where they would sign me up. 6 months, I was going to spend the rest of my life miserably failing.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real. Like, if you are trying to find a wife on some of these apps, it is kind of like hitting the lottery, because there's all kinds of there. Yeah, it is kind of like that. And trying to find love shouldn't be like hitting the lottery.
But here's another great statistic. Even if you are successful on an app and you do end up getting married, 9 times out of 10, you're getting divorced. 9 times out of 10.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I would imagine that there's a lot of insecurity issues that come with it, because if an app is predominantly known as a hookup app, and it's like, okay, why were you on that? Well, you were on the app. Yeah, right. But how long were you on the app? How long was your profile open? It's like, it's just not healthy. It's just not healthy for, I think, for anybody. And this is kind of a a place for people that are just sick and tired of the same old stuff to do something different. If you always do what you've always done, you always get what you always got.
Right.
We came here to bring something new because unfortunately, I don't know if some of these other companies have the same vested interest as us. Financially, I'm sure they're very interested.
Right.
Friendships and meaningful relationships, it seems like it's a persona, but if they really cared, then these type of steps would be part of it, and they don't exist.
Well, there are some dating apps that you have to take a quiz and you have to go through the
Really?
process and stuff like
I didn't
that.
know that.
Yes, there's two that I can think of off the top of my head. Uh, um, and I used to say to somebody, if I have to choose an app, I would rather choose one you have to pay for, because you're not going to pay unless you're serious.
Yeah, it shows a level of commitment.
Right.
You're financially invested.
And number two, one that they took the test, because also it shows a level of commitment. And some of those tests are so rigorous, and you're like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to end? And so that was a fine line I had to walk myself when creating this test. It was like, just like I told you the other day, I did one, it was 180 questions. And at the end, I'm like, wasn't I just asked this question?
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a fine line, but again, our process is not instant. Our process is, let's take the time
Mm-hmm.
and let's create a foundation.
Right. Like you said, it's a microwave culture, and if we had a microwave test, we would be just like all the others.
Right.
There would be nothing different about it. And I think when people weigh out I guess, what they've had to deal with these apps, I think they're more than willing to not only pay financially, but pay with their time and put a lot of effort into it. I mean, if you can't sit down, and we are losing our attention span a little bit, but if you can't sit down for
20
2
minutes.
hours,
It's 20 minutes.
20 minutes, but I'm saying like it should be like, I mean, you can sit down and watch a movie for 2 hours, but you can't sit down and find your future life partner who you may have children and have a whole legacy with. It's like
Right.
that needs I'm on kind of the side where I think that it's good because it kind of weans out people that aren't committed, because there's places for that
Right.
already, and we want to be kind of a safe haven for people that don't want to go there.
And also, probably not in the beta version, because we are doing a soft launch. That's not going to have all the bells and whistles, but in the actual app, if somebody just clicks d d d d d d d all the way through, it's going to stop them mid and say, hey, we've noticed that you've gone through this in 1 minute and you're already
Yeah.
on question 100. There's not 100 questions, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Please go back and take your time and really invest into yourself, because it's an investment into yourself.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I never really thought of until now is that when you're on a date, at least a first date, sometimes somebody will ask you something, maybe something personal, and you'll lie, because I don't know. Yeah, I felt backed up into a corner. And the older I've gotten, I have made it a priority to just be brutally honest, because guess what? If you don't like that, then you weren't right for me.
Right.
Instead of me trying to win you over, I want somebody to just love who I am.
Right.
And that's what's great about this test, is that you're sitting alone, you're by yourself, there's no one putting pressure on you, and you can be brutally honest, and the only thing you're going to get after is a color.
Right.
Right. So I think,
and a little information about yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe something that's surprising,
mm-hmm.
that you weren't thinking about yourself. And sometimes when you take a test or you take a quiz, you select an answer that you think is the right answer.
Yeah.
But here there are no right answers. It's your answer.
Yeah.
And it's so important to not lie,
Yeah.
because if you're lying, what's going to happen? You're going to get a green when you should have got an orange,
Yeah.
and now greens and orange, they're not really that compatible. But
No.
now, now you have the right color. So, this it's going to take a lot of education. This is not anything like anything that's out there right now. And so I just really want people to understand that, appreciate it, take the time, because you're going to develop lifelong relationships, friendships, partnerships, whatever you choose.
Yeah. I said earlier, falling in love shouldn't be like winning the lottery. Well, falling in love is kind of like winning the lottery. What I mean is the odds shouldn't be the same as the lottery.
Right.
So, yeah, I think it's really important, like you said, to for people to be intentional. I think intentional is a big word that stands out to me over all of this. From the moment you download the app and you get walked through the steps, knowing that you really are creating your own reality based on how serious or not you take it. Um, but I think I really do believe 99.9% of people this are going to be taking it very serious because people are fed up and tired, and the fact that you are bringing a solution to a problem, I don't think people are going to want to bring their old ways to the app. When you first had this idea, they say every idea starts with a thought. So what was that thought that you had?